Lady Jia was bored. She stood on the observation deck of Space Station Nexus 7, looking out at the stars with dull eyes. Behind her, 3 servants waited silently for orders. She didn't even remember their names. What was the point? They all did what she wanted without question. Everything was always the same. Parties with the same people. Meetings about the same trade deals. The same fake smiles from people who wanted something from a hand-trading corporation she would one day inherit. "My lady," a voice said behind her. "The exotic pet market is open now." Jia turned to see Da, her personal assistant. Unlike the servants, Da sometimes had useful ideas. "Very well," she said. "Let's go. I need something new in my life." The pet market was crowded and noisy. Aliens of all types walked between stalls selling creatures from across the galaxy. Jia wrinkled her nose at the smell but moved forward, her guards pushing shoppers out of her way. "What about a flutterbird from Altair?" Da suggested, pointing to a cage with a glowing, 6-winged creature. Jia shook her head. "I have 3 already. They're pretty but stupid." They walked past stalls selling furry, 6-legged pets that sang when touched, and tiny reptiles that could change color to match their owner's clothes. Nothing caught Jia's interest. "My lady," Da said quietly, "I heard something interesting yesterday. There's a new species available. They're called humans. They were found on a planet at the edge of known space." "Humans?" Jia rolled the strange word in her mouth. "What makes them special?" "They're supposed to be quite intelligent," Da said, "but also trainable, like having a smart pet that can learn tricks but won't challenge you." For the first time that day, Jia felt a spark of interest. "Where can I see one?" Da led her to a small shop at the back of the market. The sign above it said, "Rare Specimens," in 5 different languages. Inside, the shop was dark and cluttered with cages. A thin alien with pale blue skin greeted them with a bow that was just a bit too shallow for Jia's status. "Ah, the noble Lady Jia. What an honor. I am Kiv, humble merchant of the finest creatures in the galaxy." "I want to see a human," Jia said, not bothering with pleasantries. Kiv's eyes widened slightly. Of course. I have 1 specimen left. A male, in excellent condition. Please, this way." He led them to a room at the back of the shop. Inside was a clear cage, larger than the others. A creature sat inside on a bench, looking at a small screen in his hands. Jia studied him with interest. He looked somewhat like her own species, but with rounded ears and lighter skin. His hair was black and short. He wore simple clothes, a blue top and black pants. "Stand up," Kiv ordered. The human looked up, saw Jia, and stood. He was taller than Jia expected, with broad shoulders. His eyes were dark and alert. He didn't look scared or confused like most new pets. Instead, he seemed to be studying Jia just as carefully as she studied him. "This one is called Li," Kiv said. "He's quite intelligent and learns quickly. Watch this." He pressed a button on his wrist device. "Li, turn around 3 times." The human named Li rolled his eyes, but did as instructed. "You see," Kiv said, obedient, but with enough personality to be interesting. "How much?" Jia asked. "For you, Lady Jia, only 50,000 credits. A bargain for such a rare specimen." Jia noticed that Kiv seemed eager to sell. Too eager, perhaps, but the human intrigued her. Something about his eyes suggested he knew more than he showed. "I'll take him," she said. As the payment was processed, Jia caught the human looking at her again. For just a moment, she thought she saw his lips twitch into a small smile. "Prepare him for transport to my ship," she told Da. "I want to leave right away." As they walked out, Da leaned close. "You seem pleased, my lady." "I am," Jia said. "I have a feeling this human will be much more interesting than a flutterbird." Behind them, Kiv counted his credits with a relieved smile. The human watched Jia leave, his eyes bright with something that looked surprisingly like amusement. Jiz's starship was the pride of the Hand Trading Corporation. It gleamed with silver and blue lights as it sat in the docking bay of Nexus 7. Inside, it was even more impressive, with rooms larger than most people's homes. Day led the way to the pet quarters, where Lee would stay. The human followed behind, looking at everything with wide eyes. "This ship is huge," Lee said suddenly. His voice was deeper than Jia expected. "What do you call it?" Jia turned, surprised. Most new pets didn't speak so boldly. "It is the Star Lotus," she said, "and you will speak only when spoken to." Lee nodded but didn't look worried. "Cool name. Sounds like something from a sci-fi movie. Though I would have gone with something more like Space Yacht Mishiakface." Day gasped at the human's disrespect. Jia's eyes narrowed. "What did you just say?" she asked. "Nothing important," Lee said with a smile. "Just a human joke. So, Space Elf Lady, what's your deal? You collect pets from all over the galaxy." "Space Elf Lady." Jia's voice was cold. "You will address me as Lady Jia, or my lady." Lee looked at her pointed ears and raised his eyebrows. "Right, got it. Lady Jia it is." The pet room was large and comfortable, with a soft bed, a water pool, and plants from different worlds. It was designed to make any creature feel at home. "This is where you will stay," Dad explained to Lee. "Lady Jia is most generous to her pets." Lee looked around. "Not bad. Better than my apartment back on Earth. Does it have space internet? I need to check if anyone's updated the galaxy's meme situation." "Meme?" Jia asked, confused by the strange word. "Oh man," Lee said, sitting on the bed. "You don't know what memes are. That's the real tragedy here. Memes are like jokes in picture form. They're the highest form of human art." Jia was beginning to think she had made a mistake. This human didn't act like a pet at all. He talked too much and didn't show proper respect. "I think there has been a misunderstanding," she said firmly. "You are my pet now. You will learn to obey and please me. If you can't do that, I will return you to the market." Lee looked at her for a long moment. Then he shrugged. "That's rough, buddy." "What?" Jia was not used to such calm responses to her threats. "It's another reference you don't get," Lee explained. "Look, I get the situation. You bought me. You think I'm some kind of space puppy. But humans aren't really the obedient pet type. We're more like chaotic roommates who occasionally do what you ask if we feel like it." Day stepped forward, looking worried. "My lady, perhaps we should have the human examined. It may be unwell." "I'm not unwell," Lee said. "I'm just not what you expected. But hey, I can be entertaining in other ways. Want to hear about the time humans sent a hot dog to space just to take pictures of it?" Jia didn't know what a hot dog was, but she was starting to realize that Lee was very different from her other pets. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't trying to please her. He was just being himself. "Da. Leave us," Jia ordered. When her assistant had gone, she sat in a chair across from Lee. "Explain yourself. What kind of creature are you really?" Lee smiled, and for the first time, it seemed genuine rather than mocking. "I'm a human. We're complicated. But if you really want to understand, I'll need access to your ship's data system, so I can show you what human culture is like." "And why should I trust you with access to my ship's systems?" Jia asked. Lee grinned. "Because I'm the most interesting thing that's happened to you in years. Admit it, you're not bored anymore." Jia tried to look angry, but she couldn't deny it. This strange, disrespectful human was indeed the most interesting thing she had encountered in a very long time. "We'll see," she said, standing up. "Rest now. Tomorrow we will begin your education." As she left, she heard Lee call after her. "Looking forward to it, Space Elf Lady." Jia should have been furious. Instead, she found herself fighting back a smile. The Star Lotus left Nexus 7 the next morning. heading for Jia's home planet. Jia sat in her private study, watching Li explore the room. She had decided to teach him about galactic society, though she wasn't sure why she bothered. Most pets didn't need to know such things. The galaxy is ruled by the Galactic Council, she explained. There are 12 major species with seats on the council. My people, the Han, hold one of the most powerful positions. Li nodded, picking up a small statue from her desk. So you're like space royalty. That explains the fancy ship and the servants who won't look me in the eye. Jia took the statue from his hands and put it back. The Han Trading Corporation controls trade routes in 3 sectors. My father is the chief executive. One day, I will take his place. Sounds boring, Li said. He sat in a chair, without being invited, and put his feet up on a small table. Don't you ever just want to? I don't know. Go to a space carnival. Eat too much space cotton candy. Ride the space roller coaster. Jia frowned. I don't know what those things are. That's the problem with being space royalty, Li said. You miss out on the fun stuff. He took his feet off the table and leaned forward. On Earth, we have this thing called pranks. It's when you do something silly to surprise someone. That sounds childish, Jia said. Li grinned. Exactly. That's what makes it fun. Over the next few days, Jia tried to continue Li's education. She showed him star maps and explained the complex politics between different alien species. Li listened politely but kept making strange comments. That's just like that movie where the aliens were actually good guys, but humans thought they were evil, he said once. What is a movie? Jia asked. It's like a story that moves. We watch them for fun. Li looked shocked when Jia didn't understand. You don't have movies. What do you do for entertainment? We have music, art, and poetry, Jia said stiffly. No wonder you're always so serious, Li said. You need to laugh more. On the 5th day of their journey, Jia woke up to a strange voice coming from her food synthesizer. V-O-N-A-P-P-A-T-I-T. O-N-O-R-E-D-1. It shouted in a deep, rumbling voice that sounded like the Gorak species. Jia jumped back, startled. When she pressed the button again, the machine spoke in a high, singing voice. Enjoy your meal, pretty lady. Li, she shouted. The human appeared at her door, looking too innocent. Yes, Lady Jia. What did you do to my food synthesizer? I reprogrammed it to be more cheerful, Li said. It now says Bon Appetit in 12 different alien languages. I thought it would make meal times more fun. How did you even access the programming? Jia asked, torn between anger and amazement. Li shrugged. I'm good with computers. Humans are pretty tech-savvy. Before Jia could respond, Day rushed into the room. My lady, we will reach Hannibal in 2 days. Your father has sent a message. He expects you to attend the diplomatic function with the Nexian ambassador. Jia sighed. Another boring diplomatic event. She had forgotten all about it. You should take your human, Daz said. Exotic pets are very fashionable right now. It would impress the ambassador. He's not ready, Jia said. He doesn't behave properly. I can behave, Li said. I know how to be polite when it matters. I just choose not to most of the time. Jia looked at him doubtfully. The diplomatic function is very important. My father will be watching. If you embarrass me. I won't, Li promised. Besides, I want to see what space diplomats look like. Do they have extra heads? Tentacles instead of arms? Some do, Jia said seriously. Li's eyes widened with excitement. Now that's what I'm talking about. Real aliens. This is like all my favorite shows combined. Later that day, Dai found Jia watching Li as he explored the ship's garden. My lady, Dai said quietly, I must warn you. You are giving the human too much freedom. It is not proper. What will people think? I don't care what they think, Jia said, surprising herself. He is interesting. That is the problem, Dai said. A pet should not be interesting. It should be obedient. Jia watched as Lee discovered a flower that changed color when touched. His face lit up with childlike wonder. For the first time in years, she found herself truly smiling. Perhaps, she said, I wanted something more than just obedience. The Han family home on Handler was not really a home. It was a palace. It stood on a hill above the capital city, with tall towers that caught the light of the planet's 3 moons. Jia had grown up here, but it had never felt warm or friendly. Wow, Lee said as they approached in a flying transport. You weren't kidding about being rich and important. Jia straightened her formal robes. Remember what I told you. Stay quiet. Follow me. Do not speak unless spoken to. Got it, Lee said. Be a good pet. No problem. But Jia could see the mischief in his eyes. She was starting to recognize that look. Lee, she said firmly, this is important. My father will be watching. If you embarrass me. I promised I wouldn't, Lee said. His voice was serious now. I'll be on my best behavior. Scout's honor. Jia didn't know what Scout's honor meant, but his tone made her feel better. The diplomatic function was held in the Grand Hall. Hundreds of aliens from different worlds filled the room. They wore colorful clothes and jewels that sparkled in the light of floating lamps. Jia's father, Jun, greeted her with a small nod. He was a tall man with cold eyes. Daughter, he said, I see you have a new pet. Yes, father. This is Lee. He is a human from a newly discovered world. Jun looked at Lee with little interest. Make sure it behaves. He walked away to greet more important guests. Charming guy, Lee whispered. Family gatherings must be super fun. Be quiet, Jia whispered back. The Nexian ambassador was the guest of honor. He was tall and thin with light green skin and 4 arms. 2 servants followed him, carrying a special breathing device that he needed in this planet's air. Jia and Lee stood to one side, watching the crowd. Lee was quiet, but his eyes moved everywhere, taking in all the different aliens. He seemed especially interested in a group of small furry creatures that communicated by changing the color of their fur. Those are the Vreks, Jia explained quietly. They can change their fur color to match their emotions. Like mood rings, but cooler, Lee said. A tall alien with blue skin approached them. Jia stiffened. It was Sol, a rival of her family who worked for a competing trading company. Lady Jia, Sol said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. How nice to see you. And with a, what is this creature? This is a human, Jia said. They are a new species from the outer sectors. Sol looked at Lee with disdain. How quaint. The Han Corporation must be doing poorly if you can only afford such a plain pet. My new singing crystal bird cost more than this creature's entire planet is worth. Jia felt her face get hot with anger. Before she could respond, Lee stepped forward. Nice to meet you too, blue dude, he said cheerfully. You know, on my planet, we have a saying. It's not the size of the spaceship that matters, but how you fly it. Several nearby aliens turned to listen. Your pet speaks out of turn, Sol said coldly. You should train it better. Actually, Lee said, humans are known across the galaxy for our ability to make connections. For example, did you know that on the Vrek's homeworld, the color blue is considered the color of? He paused dramatically, complete social awkwardness. The Vreks in the group all suddenly changed their fur to bright yellow, the color of laughter. A few other aliens who understood the joke began to laugh too. Sol's face darkened to a deeper blue. You dare to mock me? Not at all, Lee said innocently. I'm just sharing cultural facts. As a dedicated pet, I study all species. Did you know that among the Goraks, constantly talking about how expensive things are is considered a sign of other inadequacies? More laughter spread through the crowd. Even the Nexian ambassador's breathing device seemed to bubble with amusement. Sol glared at Jia. Control your pet, or I will speak to your father about this insult. But Jun had already approached, drawn by the commotion. To Jia's surprise, he wasn't angry. Ambassador Nex, Jun said to the four-armed alien, I see you've met my daughter's new human. Quite entertaining, isn't he? The ambassador's translator device spoke in a metallic voice. Most amusing. I have not laughed so much in many cycles. This human understands diplomacy better than many professionals. Sol slipped away, defeated. Jun looked at Ja with something almost like approval in his eyes. Perhaps, he said quietly, your new pet was a wise investment after all. As they walked away, Li whispered to Ja, see, I told you I could behave. That was your idea of behaving, Ja whispered back. I didn't embarrass you, Li pointed out. I embarrassed him. Jia couldn't argue with that. For the first time in her life, she had won her father's approval. And it was all thanks to a human who refused to act like a pet. After the diplomatic function, Jia took Li back to her private rooms in the family palace. For once, she felt happy. Her father had been pleased. The ambassador had been impressed. Even Sol had been put in his place. You did well tonight, she told Li. Better than I expected. Li bowed with a flourish, always happy to help make stuck-up blue aliens look silly. Jia poured 2 glasses of a sparkling drink. She handed one to Li, then stopped. She had never shared a drink with a pet before. It was not done. Yet here she was, treating him almost like an equal. Li, she said slowly, how did you know those things about the different species? About what would make them laugh? Li took a sip of the drink and smiled. Good stuff. Tastes like space champagne. He looked at Jia's serious face and sighed. I guess it's time for some truth, huh? Yes, Jia said firmly. No more jokes. Tell me what you really are. Li sat down in a chair, again without waiting for permission. I am human. That part is true. But humans aren't a newly discovered species like everyone thinks. What do you mean? We've been watching the galaxy for almost 50 years, Li said. We have small ships and bases hidden all over. We study different alien cultures, learn languages, observe how your societies work. Jia stared at him in shock. That's not possible. The council would know. The council sees what it wants to see, Li said. No one pays attention to the cleaning staff, the maintenance workers, or the pets. He grinned. Or the weird creatures being sold in back-alley pet shops. So you let yourself be caught, be sold. Jia couldn't believe it. Not exactly. I was on a research mission when my cover was blown. Getting captured wasn't part of the plan. But once I was in the pet market, I decided to make the best of it. Li shrugged. It was a chance to study hand culture up close. You've been studying me. Jia felt cold. This whole time. Yes, Li admitted. But I've also been getting to know you, as a person, not just as a research subject. How many humans are out there, watching us? Jia asked. I can't tell you that, Li said, but enough to learn about most major species in the galaxy. Why? What do you want? Information. Knowledge. Li leaned forward. Humans are curious. We want to understand the galaxy before we officially join it. We want to know who would be friends and who would be enemies. And which am I? Jia asked quietly. Li looked at her for a long moment. That's what I've been trying to figure out. The way you treat me says a lot about you, about hand culture. Some people would treat a pet, or any being they thought was less powerful, very badly. Jia thought about how she had treated Li. She hadn't been cruel, but she had expected complete obedience. She had seen him as a thing to own, not as a thinking being with his own rights. You must think very poorly of me, she said. Actually, no, Li said. You've been better than most. You listened. You adapted. You let me be myself, even when it annoyed you. He smiled. That's pretty rare, in my experience. Does your government know where you are? Will they come for you? Jia asked. They know I was captured. They don't interfere with these situations. It's part of the risk of our work. Li looked out the window at the 3 moons of Handler. I've been sending reports when I can, through the space internet you gave me access to. Gia felt betrayed, confused and curious all at once. Everything she thought she knew about Lee, about humans, was wrong. He wasn't a pet. He was a spy, an observer from a species that had been secretly watching the galaxy. I need time to think, she said. You will stay in your quarters until I decide what to do with this information. Lee nodded. I understand. But Gia, it was the first time he had used her name without the title. I never lie about who I am, just about why I'm here. As guards escorted Lee out, Gia sat alone with her drink. The human was more dangerous than she had ever imagined, not because he was violent, but because he made her question everything she had been taught about her place in the galaxy. And that was far more frightening than any disobedient pet. Lee sat in his room, which was now locked from the outside. The guard stood at the door. He wasn't surprised by Jia's reaction. Finding out your pet was actually an alien spy wasn't an everyday thing. He looked around for something to do. There was no access to the ship's computer system anymore. No space internet to browse. Just four walls and his thoughts. Well, he said to himself, this mission has taken an interesting turn. Meanwhile, Jia sat in her father's study. She had not told Jun about Lee's true nature. Not yet. She needed time to think. The Nexian ambassador was very impressed, Jun was saying. He mentioned your human pets several times. Such creatures might be useful for diplomatic functions. Yes, father, Jia said, not really listening. Her mind was on Lee and his revelations. A soft beep came from Jun's desk. He touched a screen, and his face grew serious. I must attend to something, he said. We will speak later. After he left, Jia stood by the window, watching the city lights below. What should she do about Lee? Turn him over to the council. Keep his secret. What would be best for her family? For her people? Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud alarm. Red lights flashed in the hallway. Something was wrong. Day rushed into the room. My lady, the palace is under attack. We must get you to safety. Attack? By whom? Jia asked, shocked. Men working for Huan, Dai said. Huan was the head of a rival trading company, always looking for ways to hurt the Han family. They have disabled the security system somehow. They are looking for you. Day led her through a hidden door in the wall. They moved through narrow passages used by servants. They could hear shouting and the sound of weapons being fired. Where are we going? Jia asked. To your ship, Dai whispered. It's our best chance to escape. They turned a corner and found two men with weapons blocking their path. They wore black clothes with no markings. There she is, one said. Juan wants her alive. Day stepped in front of Jia, but he was no fighter. One of the men hit him hard, and he fell to the floor. Come with us quietly, the man told Jia. And no one else will get hurt. Jia backed away, but there was nowhere to run. She was trapped. Suddenly, a panel in the ceiling opened, and something dropped down on top of one of the men. It was Lee. He had somehow escaped his room and found his way through the palace's air ducts. Surprise! Lee shouted, hitting the man hard. Bet you didn't expect a human drop attack. The second man turned his weapon toward Lee, but Lee was fast. He threw a handful of small, shiny objects on the floor. They were pieces of broken glass from something in his room. The man stepped on them and slipped, losing his balance. Lee grabbed Jia's hand. Come on. I know a way out. How did you? Jia began. No time to explain, Lee said. Just run. They raced through the passages, Lee leading the way. He seemed to know the palace layout better than Jia did. How do you know where to go? She asked as they ran. I may have explored a bit while you were sleeping, Lee admitted. I like to know my surroundings. Also, I watched a lot of action movies. Rule number 1. Always know your escape routes. They reached a service elevator that took them down to the landing area where ships were kept. Jia's ship, The Star Lotus was there, but so were 4 of Juan's men. "We need a distraction," Lee whispered. "Like what?" Jia asked. Lee looked around and saw the control panel for the landing area lights. "Perfect. Watch and learn." He snuck over to the panel and did something to the wires. Suddenly, all the lights began to flash in a pattern, and a loud voice came over the speakers, playing music Jia had never heard before. The men looked around in confusion. Lee grabbed Jia again, and they ran for the ship, using the chaos as cover. Once inside, Jia rushed to the control room. "We need to take off now." Lee followed her. "I'll help. I know a bit about flying ships." "You do?" Jia asked, surprised again. "Part of my training," Lee said with a grin, "though your ships are fancier than ours." Together, they started the engines. The Star Lotus lifted off just as more of Juan's men rushed into the landing area, firing weapons at the ship. "That was close," Jia said as they shot up into the sky. "Too close," Lee agreed. He looked at his arm, and Jia saw blood. One of the weapons had hit him. "You're hurt," she said. "It's just a scratch," Lee said, though his face was pale. "All part of the job." "What job?" Jia asked. "Rescuing the person who kept you prisoner." Lee smiled weakly. "No, being a decent human being." As the ship broke through the atmosphere into space, Jia realized something important. Lee might be a spy. He might have lied about some things, but he had just risked his life to save hers. And that was something no ordinary pet would ever do. The Star Lotus flew deep into space, away from Handler and the danger of Juan's men. In the medical room, Jia carefully cleaned the wound on Lee's arm. The weapon had burned through his skin, but the injury wasn't as bad as it had first looked. "You're lucky," she said. "A few inches to the right, and it would have hit something important." "Story of my life," Lee said with a small smile. "Almost getting killed, but not quite." Jia applied a healing gel to his arm. As she worked, she thought about everything that had happened. This human had saved her life. He could have escaped on his own during the attack. Instead, he had come looking for her. "Why did you help me?" she asked. "I locked you up. I treated you like property." Lee looked at her with serious eyes. "Because that's what humans do, at least the best of us. We help people when they're in trouble, even if we don't always get along with them. Even people who buy and sell others." Lee winced, but not from the pain in his arm. "That's a fair point, but you didn't know any better. You were raised in a society where some beings are considered less important than others. You never questioned it because no one ever gave you a reason to." Jia finished bandaging his arm. She had never thought about it that way before. All her life, she had accepted that some species were meant to rule and others to serve. It was the way of the galaxy. "Tell me about humans," she said, sitting down across from him. "The truth this time." Lee smiled. "Well, we're stubborn. We argue about everything. We make jokes when we're nervous or scared. We love stories and music and art." He paused. "And we really, really value freedom." "Freedom," Jia repeated the word. "Is that why your people have been secretly studying us? To protect your freedom?" "Partly," Lee said. "We want to understand the galaxy before we officially join it. We've seen how some species treat others. We don't want to end up as pets or servants." "And what have you learned about my species?" Jia asked, not sure she wanted to hear the answer. "The Han are proud," Lee said. "You value order and tradition. You're good traders. But you don't always see other beings as your equals." He looked directly at her. "Some of you, though, can change when shown a different way." Jia thought about this. Had she changed? A week ago, she had bought Lee as a pet, expecting him to obey her every command. Now they were sitting together, talking as equals. "On my world," Lee continued, "we have a saying. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It means you can't really understand someone until you've experienced life from their perspective. And have you, Jia asked, understood my perspective? I'm trying, Li said. You were raised to be a leader in a powerful family. You have a lot of responsibilities. But maybe you've never had many real choices about your life. Jia was surprised by how close to the truth it was. She had never chosen her path. It had been decided for her before she was born. What will you do now? She asked. Try to contact your people. Li nodded. Eventually. But first, we need to deal with Juan. He'll keep coming after you. We need to find out why. We? Jia raised an eyebrow. Well, yeah, Li shrugged. We make a pretty good team, don't you think? You know the politics. I know how to crawl through air ducts and make distractions. Jia found herself smiling. A hand-trading corporation heir and a human spy. Not a normal team. Normal is overrated, Li said. Trust me, I've studied a lot of cultures, and the most interesting things happen when people break the normal rules. Jia thought about her father, about the council, about all the rules and traditions she had always followed. What would they think if they knew she was now working with a human as an equal? When we arrive at the next space station, she said, making the decision, I will introduce you as my advisor, not my pet. Li looked surprised. That's a big change, are you sure? No, Jia admitted, but it feels right. You saved my life. You deserve better than to be called a pet. Thank you, Li said quietly. That means a lot. Outside the ship's window, stars streaked by as they traveled through space. Two beings from different worlds, once owner and pet, now something else entirely. Something new. Something like friends. The space station Orion 5 was smaller than Nexus 7 but still impressive. Hundreds of ships docked there to trade goods from all over the galaxy. The Star Lotus arrived and was given a prime docking spot, as befitted a vessel of the Hand Trading Corporation. When Jia walked down the ramp, Li was beside her, not behind her. He wore new clothes that Jia had ordered for him, a formal jacket and pants in hand style, but with some human touches that Li had requested. He no longer looked like a pet. He looked like someone important. Lady Jia, the station manager, a short alien named Pol, hurried to greet them. We are honored by your visit. And this is... He looked at Li with confusion. This is Li, Jia said clearly. My advisor on human affairs. Pol's eyes widened. Advisor. But I thought humans were what? Jia asked with a cold smile. Nothing, my lady, Pol said quickly. Welcome to Orion 5. Your usual quarters are ready. As they walked through the station, people stared at them. Everyone knew Lady Jia, daughter of Jun Han. But no one had seen a human treated as an equal before. You're causing quite a stir, Li whispered to Jia. Good, Jia said. Sometimes things need to be stirred. In their private quarters, Jia received a message from her father. His face appeared on a large screen. Daughter, Jun said, I am relieved you are safe. Juan's attack was unexpected but failed. He has gone into hiding. Thank you, father, Jia said. I am well. Jun's eyes moved to Li, who stood beside Jia. I see your pet is still with you. He is not my pet, Jia said firmly. He saved my life during the attack. I am now calling him my advisor. Jun's face showed no emotion, but his voice grew cold. That is not wise, daughter. The council does not recognize humans as equals. There will be consequences. I understand, Jia said, but I have made my decision. After the call ended, Li looked at Jia with concern. That could cause problems for you. It already has, Jia said, showing him another message that had just arrived. It was from Sul, her family's rival. He was calling for a special meeting of the council to discuss the human problem and Jia's inappropriate behavior. Sul works with Juan sometimes, Jia explained. This is their way of attacking my family through me. So what do we do? Li asked. We fight back, Jia said with determination. But we need allies. Over the next few days, Jia met with representatives from other trading families while Li worked on a plan. He spent hours on the station's communication system, sending messages to hidden human observers across the galaxy. "I think I can help," Li told Jia one evening. "Humans understand something that the Council doesn't." "What's that?" Jia asked. "The power of information," Li said. "On Earth, we have something called going viral. It's when a message or idea spreads quickly to many people." "Like a disease?" Jia asked, confused. "Kind of," Li laughed, "but in a good way. It's about getting people talking, sharing ideas that can't be stopped." Li showed Jia how to create messages that would appeal to different species across the galaxy. They made simple videos explaining that humans were not pets but a free species with their own culture. Li used humor and memes to make the messages memorable. "The Council controls official channels," Li explained, "but they can't control what people share with each other." When the Council meeting began a week later, Jia and Li attended together. The great meeting hall was filled with representatives from all 12 major species. Sol stood to speak first. "The Han Trading Corporation has broken our traditions," he announced. "Lady Jia has taken a pet species and called it an equal. This cannot be allowed." Murmurs filled the room. Some council members nodded in agreement, but others looked uncertain. "May I speak?" a Vrex representative asked, her fur changing to thoughtful green. "I have seen the messages about humans. They are clearly intelligent beings with their own culture. Perhaps our traditions need to change." "I agree," said another council member. "My children have been sharing human memes. They are quite clever." Sol looked shocked. "You can't be serious." "They are just animals." "Am I an animal?" Li stepped forward. His voice was calm, but carried through the hall. "I speak your languages. I understand your cultures. I create art and technology. What makes me less than you?" The room went quiet. Many had never heard a pet speak so well before. "The human makes a valid point," the Nexian ambassador said, entering the hall. "At our last meeting, this human showed more diplomatic skill than many trained diplomats." 3 weeks after the council meeting, Jia stood in the grand hall of the council headquarters. The room was filled with more aliens than she had ever seen in one place. Representatives from all 12 major species and many minor ones had gathered for an historic event. Li stood beside her, looking unusually smart in a formal Earth suit that had been sent to him by his people. He kept pulling at the tight collar. "Stop fidgeting," Jia whispered. "I hate formal clothes," Li whispered back. "Humans still haven't figured out how to make comfortable suits after thousands of years of trying." Jia smiled. In the past month, she had learned more about humans, their humor, their stubbornness, their strange mix of wisdom and silliness. She had also learned more about herself and her place in the galaxy. A hush fell over the crowd as the doors opened. A group of 10 humans walked in. Unlike Li, who had been alone among aliens for months, these humans moved with confidence. They wore simple but elegant uniforms with a small blue and green circle on their chests. "The Earth symbol." "The human delegation," announced the council leader. At the front of the group walked a tall woman with gray hair. "I am Admiral Kim," she said in perfect galactic standard. "First contact representative of Earth Alliance. We come in peace and friendship to establish formal relations with the Galactic Council." Whispers spread through the crowd. Many had still believed humans were just clever animals. Now they were making official first contact like any other spacefaring species. Sol pushed his way to the front. "This is outrageous. They have been spying on us for years. They sent their people in secret to learn our weaknesses." Admiral Kim smiled calmly. "We sent observers, yes, as any wise species would before revealing themselves to a vast, unknown galactic community. We needed to understand the rules and customs before we introduced ourselves." "And what did you learn from your spying?" Sol demanded. Li stepped forward. "We learned which species value fairness and which only value power. We learned who would be good friends and who would treat us as less than equals. The Admiral nodded at Li with respect. Observer Li's reports have been most valuable. His unique situation gave us insights we could not have gained otherwise. Jia looked at Li in surprise. Reports. You were sending reports even after you told me the truth. Only good things about you, Li said quickly. I promise. The council leader raised his hands for silence. The council has reviewed the human delegation's credentials and evidence of their civilization. They have demonstrated technological advancement, cultural achievement, and peaceful intentions. We vote now on formal recognition. One by one, the 12 council species voted. Some, like Sol's people, voted against, but more voted in favor, including the Vrex, the Nexians, and, to Jia's surprise, her father, representing the Han. The vote is 9 in favor, 3 against, announced the council leader. The Earth Alliance is officially recognized as a sentient spacefaring civilization with all rights and responsibilities thereof. Applause filled the hall. Li's face broke into a huge smile. We did it, he said to Jia. Humans are officially not pets anymore. Thanks in large part to you, Admiral Kim said, joining them. Your work here has been extraordinary, Observer Li. After the formal ceremony, there was a celebration. Aliens and humans mingled, sharing food, drinks, and stories. Jia watched as Li charmed a group of diplomats with his humor. He is quite remarkable, Jun said, appearing beside his daughter. Yes, Jia agreed. He changed how I see the galaxy. And how I see it, Jun admitted. Our family has traded goods for generations, but Li has shown us that ideas and understanding are even more valuable. At the center of the room, a strange moment occurred. When asked how humans had remained undetected for so long, Admiral Kim smiled and said, We learned everything we know from cat videos. The aliens looked confused, but Li burst out laughing. Soon other humans joined in, leaving the aliens bewildered by the shared joke. Later, as the celebration continued, Jia found Li alone on a balcony, looking at the stars. Will you go back to Earth now? She asked. The thought made her sad, though she tried not to show it. Actually, Li said, I've been offered a position as official human liaison to the Hand Trading Corporation, if that's okay with you. Jia felt her heart lift. I think that would be acceptable. Good, Li said, because I've invested too much time educating space elves about quality memes to start over with someone else. Jia laughed. Is that the only reason you want to stay?